Hello. Welcome, everybody. I see folks are starting to join and get in here. We have a lot of people joining us this morning for a very, very interesting topic that I know many of us are tackling right now in our organizations. So I'm here with Nicole, who is a total expert on it, and I'm thrilled to learn from her today, as I'm sure you are as well. We'll give it a minute, and as people are joining, I have a little prompt here on the slide. Um, Let us know in the chat where you're joining us from, because it's always interesting to know that. And then, what's your favorite way AI is improving your work or life right now? What are you using AI for right now? Let us know in the chat. What's one thing you're using AI for in your work or life that's really interesting, Nicole?
Oh man, I just experimented using Claude Cowork to s- review my calendar and find times that I could basically readjust. I hate dealing with my schedule, and I teach a lot of classes around AI agents in the workplace. And so I was demoing this for one of my classes, and I started to say, wait a minute, maybe I could actually just use this. So it became an example that turned into something really useful. So yeah, looking at my calendar and saying, where can I do deep work? And then it will just make recommendations. You can approve them, and then it just schedules it for you. It
That's
was
pretty
incredible.
awesome.
Yeah.
Claude is blowing up, right? I made my
Yeah.
first artifact yesterday.
Oh,
It's not
congrats.
perfect, but I'm very excited because I feel like it was a barrier I needed to cross. Now that I've done it, I can do it again and again and again. Um,
Yes. Yes. I love these. They're creating little micro apps that you could just drop into your team and say, hey, look what I made. I'm making lives easier. This is one of
yeah.
my favorites. Yes.
Exactly. We've got lots of responses coming in from attendees. So, helping with newsletters, learning about how AI agents can help with learning and development, responding faster to emails. Yes. Providing suggestions where I can be more creative. Using Gemini to draft, review, analyze, and brainstorm. Um, so much great stuff here. Let's dive right in. First of all, a little bit of housekeeping. Um, Live transcription is enabled for this webinar. So if you need to use this feature, you can click on Show Captions at any time at the bottom of the Zoom. That's written on the screen as well. And this webinar will, of course, be recorded, and we will share it with those who are registered. And we want to hear your questions. Nicole, like I mentioned, is such an expert and loves questions. So please
Yeah.
ask them throughout this session, and we'll be sure to dive in. Um, I'm Linda. I work at Hone. And if you aren't super familiar with Hone, we are an AI-powered people development platform. And we blend live, expert-led development experiences with AI coaching, role plays, and lessons. And we do that in order to tackle a few major problems that organizations face, things like manager development, overall team performance, and of course, AI transformation, which is a big part of why we're all here today. And the goal of everything we do is to create continuous reinforcement and change, not one and done learning. So, really excited to be here today with Nicole Merrill. And if you have never been to one of our sessions with Nicole, you are in for a treat. They are always so insightful and so much fun. Nicole has trained more than 30,000 professionals on how to use generative AI at work. She's the founder and CEO of Boring AI, which helps organizations build the internal capacity to adopt AI through training, curriculum licensing, and workforce strategy. And before she founded Boring AI, she spent 7 years on product teams designing human-centered AI, translating technical concepts into practical results. And she teaches AI strategy and workforce transformation to executives at Porto Business School. So, welcome, Nicole. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can share yours. And thank you
Beautiful.
so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me today. Let me just get mine. We are sharing. We're almost sharing. There we are. We're good. Okay. I love the successful handover. Okay. Just housekeeping. I've got the chat up on my other screen here so I can see if y'all are responding to things. So if I'm looking up, it's because I'm looking at the chat. So welcome to today's talk. We're talking about momentum today. How do we keep the momentum going in the midst of a lot of AI chaos inside of our organizations? So I'm going to start with my favorite headline from the last year. This was actually almost a year ago. This came out. It's in the Wall Street Journal. And it simply says, everyone's talking about AI agents. Barely anyone knows what they are. It says agentic AI is the biggest buzzword in Silicon Valley, but tech companies and enterprises lack a common understanding of its meaning, and it's causing problems. And I love that, not to shame anyone that's been in that position or something like that, more so because it validates so much of what we experience inside the organization as we try to increase AI adoption, integrate it into our workflows, and so on. So it just so beautifully captured the moment. And obviously this has implications for how we communicate around AI inside our organization, how we lead on and provide direction on the why of what we're doing with AI and so on. But I think just as a kind of a temperature check, it does a great job. And I would say that even going into late 2025 and into early 2026, this is still continuing, right? This kind of like the market is moving so fast and everyone's jumping on the next trend and we're talking about the next thing and the newest model and the newest tool. And the rest of us who are trying to implement are sitting there going, yeah, but we still have to get the basics right. We're still working on this. So this kind of divide and hype continues in 2026. So two big themes I'm seeing right now in the 2025, late 2025 to 2026 that I want to talk about to kick things off that we are navigating specifically in the HR L&D people space. I want to talk about, and the reason I talk about now is because I'm not interested in the future of work like 5 years from now. Things are moving too quick. I'm very much a practical person when it comes to working with AI. So what's happening now? One of the biggest things that we see in our organizations is that AI adoption is uneven. Okay, we see AI adoption happening in across different industries, but unevenly. So a lot of times we see our bigger companies who can, afford a lot of the products and testing and time to, they are having more AI adoption inside their organizations. We also see within our organization uneven adoption between teams. We might have one department or two departments that are ahead of another. There's reasons for that. Sometimes it's because, some teams just have more time to dedicate to learning about AI. I was talking to a sales team where AI is pretty present, but the leader said to me, hey, you know what? Like, I love that everyone's experimenting with AI, but the reality is we've got to make X amount of dollars this month and hit those targets. That is our priority. Learning AI is not our priority. I was like, that's fair, right? So we do see some of this uneven AI adoption inside our organizations, which is tough for those of us who are trying to get everybody up to speed. The other challenge that we were really seeing as towards the end of 2025 and into 2026 definitely is the novelty of AI has worn off. And I think this is kind of the one that this is maybe the biggest shift I've seen when it comes to when I'm actually doing trainings is, in the beginning there was this shiny kind of like, oh my gosh, AI, this is so great. What is this? And kind of this like real push to really give it a shot and see what's happening. And that shininess has worn off over the last year or so. I've been teaching pretty much since the day ChatGPT came out. And so what we see is a combination of one, AI fatigue. There's just AI everywhere. It's in our tools. There are major tools, but then it's embedded in our own tools. It's embedded in tools that we're not even sure why AI is there, right? We have some AI skepticism. It's like, yeah, I've tried it, right? It didn't really do much. Why should I keep going, right? And then we also have some of the AI fear as well. We've seen the headlines, right? We know the role that AI is playing in the marketplace. So we really have a lot of challenges as practitioners to be able to bring people along on this journey and keep the momentum going. So I point that out because I like to be real about kind of where we're at so we can correctly diagnose and then move forward from there. And I think this PwC quote, this comes from the Global Workforce Survey last year, really sums up where we're at. And that's simply this, that this is not a technology story. We talk about AI, but it's not about the technology so much as it's about the people. Workers thrive when they understand the plan. And in a year of rising financial strain and many feeling overwhelmed, leaders must redesign the work and provide clarity and confidence. So that looks like simple everyday use cases, strong guardrails, the skills, trust, and support that turn AI from hype into real help, which sounds amazing. I love it. But what does that look like in practice? So that's what we're going to talk about today. What does it look like in practice to do that, specifically in the clarity and confidence piece, and building those skills and support, right? Because as workforce development professionals, whether you're on the HR side, the training side, the people side, whatever role you are playing, you contribute to a massive pillar in the AI transformation space. If we look at the five pillars in the AI transformation space, we really see workforce development as really the lead on the people story, right? And so that means you are doing things like preparing everyone for new AI roles. That can look like creating learning opportunities, which are formal and informal. We'll talk about some of what that looks like. Designing new job families for AI roles, developing new AI skills, identifying opportunities to apply those new AI skills, because the thing about AI is that it's not enough to just watch videos about AI, right? We need to actually apply it, test it out, experiment, keep what works, and check what doesn't work. And we need time to do that as well. And then you're also defining how people are rewarded for applying new AI skills. So this is probably one of the newer developments in the space, and I'd be curious how you all are dealing with in your organization. We are seeing AI jobs emerge that are paying very well, and people with AI skills are starting to look at those jobs and say, maybe I should be working in those organizations because I have these AI skills now. They know that their premium is being paid for these roles, which is great. But it also means that inside your organization, you have to be looking at how do we reward people with AI skills once we've taught them. So all of this to say, we play this major role, but the reality on the ground is still that 93% of AI spend still goes to technology, while only 7% goes to changing the culture and training and learning. And this was from Deloitte. They were actually talking about why AI agents kind of failed to take off in 2025. And of course, there are some technical challenges and organizational readiness. But when we think about, what we are promised with the future of work with AI agents coming into our organization, it's really this story of creating the processes and structures and infrastructure to allow for this type of work to thrive inside of organizations. So we really have to think about redesigning the work rather than just adding AI agents onto our existing work processes. But that's hard to do when we're not really focused on that kind of cultural and training. Now, I know all of us here are actually focused on that piece. And what it looks like for us is that we are figuring it out as we go. And that I'd like to point out because for a lot of us, we are doing our best to keep up with AI, and we are, learning the tools, and we're experimenting. And at the same time, we are expected to teach it and guide others as well. And that's a huge responsibility. So, what does that mean then? So how do we arrive at clarity amongst all of that AI chaos? Okay, so that's kind of the focus for this. Before I talk about kind of what that looks like, I have two questions for you that I'm going to ask you to reflect on as we kick off this next session onto the clarity piece of this talk. The one thing I would like you to reflect on is what should happen. I want you to imagine everyone in your organization is trained on AI. Great, okay? What should happen after that? You can put it in the chat, you can write it down, but it's really a reflection to see what should happen. And then the second one is, what is the goal of your AI training? And again, you can write it down, you can just think about it, okay? Excellent. Okay. So we ask these questions in part to just check in. Why are we doing the work we're doing? What are our expectations? Do the assumptions match the reality? Right. And so on. So excellent. Okay. So I talk about this because a lot in the last couple of years when we have a bit of a different story when it comes to launching AI programs. Oftentimes it starts with someone in leadership saying, we have to do something about AI. And that translates into everyone must use AI, which then translates into great, we are going to get vendors, we're going to select them to teach, the programs are launched, we kick things off, and then what happens is we get stuck in kind of this, okay, but what does that mean? Everyone uses AI, right? When do we use it? How much do we use it? Why do we use it? That's another common one. And so what happens is we launch our programs because everyone must use AI, but the problem is that we are measuring simply everyone's tool usage, right? And what happens from there is we don't really have any momentum. Great, everyone's used AI. Now what? What happens? Because the reality is that just because everyone knows how to use AI doesn't mean that automatically translates into every business transformation or work redesign. Okay. Those type of things tend to work earlier on in 2023, 24, when people are, in the beginning of experimenting with AI. But these days, the AI learning plan has to be better defined. And so when we think about adding clarity, we go back to the definition of your learning outcomes. And I put redefine here because for many of you, if you started the process in 2023, 24, the outcomes might look different now. We've seen a lot of changes in the workplace. We've seen changes in both the technology and the tools. When we talk about, oftentimes when I talk to teams who are writing governance policy, I ask, when's the last time you looked at your governance policy? And they say, oh, we wrote it in 2024. And it's like, well, it's time to go back to it because we've had so many changes in the types of tools, and in particular, the amount of data that these tools want to access. And so, the same goes for our learning programs, being able to redefine or define, if you haven't already done it, because the process can be really reactive, your learning outcomes, because it is your learning outcomes that are going to shape your training and shape the momentum inside your organization. So for example, if we are measuring everything by everybody uses AI, that is a very simple goal. Your goal is AI usage at scale. We measure how many people are using AI. The training definitely just involves some tool training, right? We're gonna give you access to ChatGPT, Claude. You're gonna use it. We're gonna teach you how to prompt. The problem is this doesn't result in organizational transformation, okay? And then it leaves everybody else going, I've used AI, right? So everyone using AI as an outcome is certainly one outcome, but it means that your training isn't necessarily going to result in business transformation. I have some other outcomes here. This is when I was talking to a client the other day, and they said, we want to become an agentic AI company. Big buzzword, as we know. I said, okay, well, let's talk about what that actually means. But let's say that is your goal. You want to become an agentic AI company. Okay, that means you're focused on workflow redesign with AI, right? It's a fundamental reshaping of how work gets done with AI agent. That means your training is going to look a lot different. Okay, it means it's going to be involve learning to build AI solutions, and that's not just on your technical team. It also includes your non-technical people as well. It means and sorry, my words today are not coming out. How did that happen? It also means ensuring that the training includes training on redesigning workflows. A lot of people kind of assume that we just figure out where, how our work changes, but the reality is it's skill to be taught. And oftentimes it's your managers that are going to need to be taught that skill. And it also means teaching people how to manage semi-autonomous and autonomous agents. And these are just some of the things that you have to teach in this space. So your training is going to look a lot different if you are mapped to this kind of learning outcome. And on top of it, this is all going to depend on your company operating model and meaning your tech and data readiness. So for example, the other day I was teaching a group. We were focused, non-technical team, that's my specialty. We were focused on AI agents in the workplace. And I was teaching them, but the reality is their organization didn't actually have AI agents to use. Right? We were using off-the-shelf ones that were available in the market, right? But they weren't actually embedding them in their workflows. And that's fine to teach the skills, but they weren't actually there as an organization to be able to use them. So it's interesting where sometimes the training can catch up, but the organization is not quite ready. So that's why going back to really defining these learning outcomes and seeing, do we have the infrastructure on the technical side? Do we have the strategic infrastructure as well is key in this. Another example here is on the preparing employees for emerging AI roles. So this is another learning outcome. This one, you can see how it starts to change the learning process here. So the goal here is really just focused on the role and skill evolution. So we're keeping it not necessarily focused on the organizational goal, though this could be an organizational goal, but focus more on training that focuses on role-based pathways, skill mapping, mapping out what the emerging roles are, how many of them you might need inside your organization for the near future, and so on. And that results, again, in a very different training map based on those learning outcomes. And so this, of course, is dependent on your organization having a strategy, but it is a different way, again, to approach your training process. And so the reason we talk about this is because as it's been very clear, is that defining your learning outcomes shapes your training opportunities. Now, here's the thing: you can have multiple learning outcomes, right? You don't have to have just one, but having the overarching one and some smaller ones as well is going to give you the information you need to create the learning opportunities that sustain momentum over time. Because teaching and learning about AI is not a one and done course. It happens over the course of a year, right? And over time, you are building skills. The skills that we teach for AI literacy and applied AI for non-technical teams are different skills than what you would use in your everyday job, okay? And so really, when we look at the opportunity in the AI space to teach, we see formal learning opportunities and informal learning opportunities, like program, right? In the AI space, this looks a lot like self-paced courses, live workshops, hackathons. Zapier, the company Zapier does a great job writing about their AI transformation story, by the way, if you ever want to see like how another company did it. And they talk about the importance of hackathons and hackathons being more, not so much on it's traditionally associated with software engineering and development, right? Drop everything, build things. But now since AI tools allow you to vibe code things, to create mini AI assistants through custom GPTs and so on, you can now give that access to anyone inside your company and shape a hackathon for whether at a team level, department level, or an organizational level to really give people the chance to learn and apply their AI skills. Okay, and I'd be curious if anybody had done that as well in their organization, if they've tried that. And then we have the informal learning opportunities, and I think this is where the magic happens. Honestly, I mean, I spend a lot of time. Obviously, I've got self-paced courses, I've got live workshops. I spend a lot of time there, but the real magic is happening in the informal learning opportunities. Okay, between the courses. That looks like things like office hours. Okay, office hours is something I host, but also you can host this internally in your company. You get the people who know the most about AI and who are really excited about it, and you say, you have office hours now. Everyone can drop in and ask you questions. Okay, and the thing about people, they're often your AI champions. The thing about those people is they're really excited to talk, okay, about AI. You can leverage that and give them a space to do that. Before I started my own business, I did that inside companies, and it was great. You can also have prompting practice where people come and do a prompt show and tell. You can have AI tool demos. I tell people this all the time. Sign your team up for a demo of an AI tool in your industry. It's great. You might have to deal with some sales emails, but the reality is you get to learn a lot about AI in those tool demos. It's an informal learning opportunity to ask questions and see how are people using and applying AI in your industry or your function. It's a great way to learn. Peer training, again, getting peers to help each other learn how to use AI, build small tools and stuff. And then there's hands-on use case development. That's or a facilitated learning experience, oftentimes done by managers in a manager trainee. But again, informal learning opportunities to have a discussion about where AI fits in our work, okay? And all of these enable your team to build their AI skills over time, right? So if you're focusing on, say, you've got a bunch of self-paced courses, maybe you do some live workshops, start thinking about those informal learning opportunities. What could they look like? And what I love about this is that they take some structure, right, and a little bit of guidance, but they aren't so much to put together, right? The preparation for these is not hard. Okay, we do a lot of, at Boring AI, we do a lot of facilitation kits. We provide those for L&D teams to help them facilitate these types of things in their organization. So if you're thinking about, hey, what could I do next to like keep the momentum going? These type of things work really well. Now, so let's think about let's pick a learning outcome. I like this one because I'm obsessed with the emergent AI roles and talk about how we would then use that to define our training opportunities using the examples I had before. So we're going to imagine that our learning outcome is preparing AI employees for emerging roles. We're going to go ahead and we're going to not go dive deep into this right now, but some of those emerging roles look like AI enablement, AI builders, AI owners, AI transformation leads. And then we also have AI agent managers. And by the way, these are not necessarily technical roles. Most times these are non-technical roles here. Some of them bridge between technical and non-technical. It's getting fuzzy right now, that term. But the AI agent managers are essentially what you will need if you are going to be using AI agents in the next year. If you're bringing them into your organization, expecting them to take over workflows and stuff, you need to be preparing people for working with AI agents. And there's a very specific skill set, okay? It's different from your kind of fundamental AI literacy skill set as well. It's kind of like, the next, I'd say third level, right? And what this term came from Harvard Business Review, and they talked about how this is an emerging job. It's about 12 to 18 months out. So if you go, Google this job or look for it in LinkedIn, it doesn't quite exist. It's buried in the details of job descriptions. So let's assume that our learning goal is to prepare people for AI-enabled jobs in our company. Then we are going to sprinkle in some skill mapping, okay? Because we can't do this without doing skill mapping. I am skipping over that for this presentation here because we don't have time to go into that. But then we could then curate our learning opportunities based on that learning goal. Okay, so now let's assume our learning goal was to prepare people for emerging jobs. We can now look at what are some of the formal opportunities we have. Well, we can have self-paced courses for each emerging role and skill set. We can do hands-on workshops to apply these new skills and get feedback. So imagine you're working with AI agents. Now you have a live session to talk about what you learned. This is something I just ran the other day for a client. And then, and it's wild because people want to talk, right? You give them an online course and then they want to talk about what they learned. So great opportunity there. You could do hackathons for AI builders and AI owners, right? AI owners tend to be people who are product managers, program managers. And then we have those informal learning opportunities. And that's where I think it starts getting really helpful when we redefine our learning outcomes. Then it becomes clear, how do we support them with our informal opportunities? Again, we have prompting practice, AI agent demos. There are hundreds of AI agents out there. It is really the Wild West. So these demos are super interesting. You could have AI champion-led office hours, recorded demos of successful AI workflows. You could have an entire library of those workflows so people see what it means to have an AI-enabled workflow. Because a lot of what we talk about when we say, hey, AI workflows and AI use cases, they're very abstract, right? Some people automatically get it, but the majority don't, okay? And that's okay. These are new skills. These are new, this is a new technology. You could have lightning talks featuring prompt fails and wins. So one of my favorites. I love seeing a fail, right? We learn from failure. And you could do AI job shadowing across functions as well. So what's really interesting about AI, what the research is showing is that when we start to bring AI into our workforce, we are seeing the traditional functions break down and blur. And we are seeing companies, the bigger tech companies in particular, start to redesign their organizations and their teams in particular differently, and the functions themselves, because AI is breaking down the functions, the barriers of the function. Just because I do this now doesn't mean that AI is going to stay in this lane. It's going to do, it might do a task that is, that spans, product development and product design, right? If we think about vibe coding, that's an example there. So when we define our learning outcomes, we can more clearly define what our formal and informal learning opportunities can be. And we can do this with all of our outcomes. And what this creates is a learning roadmap. And this learning roadmap, not a new concept, but it is so helpful in the AI space. When you look at this is a great example of the AI Builders Roadmap. This is something I did for a client a while back. We talked about the AI builder is essentially the person who can spin up prototypes, can put systems together, light systems. This is not full engineering at all. They partner with engineers to talk about use cases. They're the type of people that you want to cultivate on your teams, right? Because they're the ones that can build, not just use, but build workflows with AI. Okay, either as a way to streamline processes or to communicate what the work to be done by engineering. So there's real value in this role, but you have to get people there, right? And so when we look at what this looks like, if we have a clear learning roadmap, then we can say, okay, this is what your month looks like, 2, 3, 4, right? Here is the learning plan. And that is clarity. That is the clarity that you can then communicate to everybody else who is saying, what are we doing here, right? Should I be, we see so many questions right now around, well, what about this model? Should I use this tool? Should I use this tool? What about this, right? When you provide a learning map, it gives people the opportunity to actually focus. Okay. Then they're able to say, okay, so I don't have to worry about these things over here. I simply need to worry about it. Worry is a strong word. I simply need to follow this path here. This is the training I'm going to get. This means you can answer the question of why are we doing this? This is such an overlooked question. And over the years, I've heard things like, oh, we're doing this to make, we're teaching you AI so you can be more productive. That does not land, okay? Nobody truthfully wants to be more productive. So let's be honest here, right? Yeah, some people do, but the reality is the majority of your employees, they want to know what's in it for them. This is straight up change management. What is in it for them, right? So if you are preparing people, in this case, for emerging AI roles, you now have a why. We're preparing you for the AI roles inside our organization that are coming up. We are preparing you for emerging roles on the open market. Okay. A lot of times when I teach my classes, I show them the jobs first, and then we talk about how you build the skills to get there, right? And that is motivating. Yeah, and we're preparing you to use AI responsibly in any role. There are a lot of concerns around AI use. So we look at the responsible AI side. What does it look like? We are helping you adapt to AI's impact on our careers. We all know AI is hitting our careers. There's a lot of fear. We want to help you adapt. Now, does this mean it's going to land all the time? No, but this does mean you now have messaging around it. And so this helps answer the question of what we're learning. Same thing, right? We're using to use AI responsibly, use it for the right task, work with data safely. I can tell you that when I am in live sessions, data comes up every single time. And the biggest trend of 2025 wasn't that flew under the radar is that pretty much every AI tool now wants to connect to your internal data systems, right? And so people they don't know what to do. They don't know what kind of data to use. Oftentimes they're like, we can't do anything at all, when in fact you might be able to do some things, right? So this skill set of knowing how to use data is so key and often overlooked, and so on. So you really have this opportunity to articulate to people, your employees, the why behind your training, the what we are doing, and do it in a way that matters to them, that shows there is a plan, despite all the chaos, that there is an actual plan here, and this is how we are executing on it. So, with all that said, that is how we do the learning plan and why that redefinition of our learning outcomes is so key. And if you haven't revisited your learning outcomes in a while, it might be time to kind of gather everyone around and talk about it. What are we doing? What are we planning for? What have we learned in the last year that might change our learning outcomes? Okay, entirely possible. Change is happening all around us. We don't have to change all the time, but maybe there are tweaks to be made. Or maybe there's an opportunity, maybe your outcomes are solid, but you have an opportunity there to look at some of your informal training opportunities. These will help continue the momentum for your programs. So the other key piece here is your managers. Okay, and this is when I talk a lot about they are key to your learning roadmap. They are key to the AI adoption efforts. And I will tell you that oftentimes they are overlooked because they have to learn AI just like everyone else. Unfortunately, or fortunately, they also have another role to play as well. Okay, this is from Gallup in their global workforce survey from 2025, and they talk about the role of the manager having a huge outsized impact on employees' willingness to use AI tools in their work. Okay. And it says here, manager support has the strongest association with measurable differences in how employees use and value AI. Within organizations that are investing in AI technology, employees who strongly agree their manager actively supports their team's use of AI are 6.5 times as likely to strongly agree that AI tools provided by their organization are useful for their work. So we see here that manager support is critical. Okay. And I tell you, the key point I want to stress here in supporting your managers is that they do need training beyond the basics. Okay. Now, we run an accelerator program, so there's a lot in the manager training, but I will tell you some of the key things we're teaching. Identify and prioritize AI use cases, so they are tied to business goals, right? We want to make sure we're not just using AI to use AI. They need to actually match the business goals. In fact, that's what managers are evaluated on, right? Measure impact and ensure quality outputs, right? For those of you who may have heard in the last year, Harvard Business Review put out a really interesting article in which they talked about the rise of AI work slump. They were building on the term AI slop, right? Low quality generated outputs. They were talking about in the workplace, researchers found that people who submitted low quality outputs using AI were creating more work for their coworkers and reducing trust between the coworkers, and I would argue the team as well. And so the takeaway from that was, well, we need to ensure that everyone is giving quality outputs. And what to which I say, yes, and we have to teach how to talk about what quality work looks like with AI. Okay, so if you think about it in your own work, what qualifies as quality? Is it you know it when you see it? Are there standards, right? So that's something we talk about on when we do manager training. You have to lead teams through the adoption, upskilling, and workflow design. It is a leadership role, right? You are guiding them. Now, HR and L&D and all of them, you can contribute to this, but they do need the support to do that. They need guidance on what skills should I be building? What does adoption success look like? Okay, is it tool use or should I be expecting something else in the metrics? What workflows should we redesign? Okay. And then, of course, we have the trust, guardrails, and model responsible AI use. Again, a lot of times when people have questions on teams, who do they need to be able to go somewhere, right? And sometimes they'll be like, oh, well, they can go to legal. Legal can be really intimidating. So, we want processes in place where someone who's like not sure about an AI output or not sure if someone's using it correctly or just generally not sure, they have a place to go. In an ideal world, that's your manager. But in order for that to be, we need to create the conditions for psychological safety on our teams in order for people to do that, right? That's how we start to create the responsible AI use. The other point, too, in supporting your manager really comes from looking at the managerial role itself right now. The manager role in an AI-enabled organization has changed, okay? But the job descriptions have not. So I'll give you a very concrete example. There are a lot of organizations out there that are telling their managers, you have to find AI use cases, find AI use cases on your team. And a lot of managers, when we talk to them, are like, yeah, but what does that even mean? What's an AI use case? What counts, right? How do I do that on top of my existing work, right? And then I talked to one manager who was like, so this is my job now or what? And I thought she had a really good point, right? And I was talking to a VP the other day who said, oh, we're too busy for all this. We're just going to have to hire someone for this. And I said, great, now you've hit decision, right? You've hit a decision. We do not have the capacity to make every manager find AI use cases. We're going to need to hire for this role. And I thought, great. Now we have clarity here, right? So it's important to give your managers the job clarity they need. This on the screen here, you'll see the core responsibility. I picked marketing manager. Obviously, there's going to be variations in your job family here, but if we look at kind of what a marketing manager might do, on the left we see a list of things, and on the right we see what we are asking of them in an AI leadership capacity on their team. So if you said, hey, I want you to use AI on your team, you are responsible for your AI team's use. These are some of the things that translates into. And it might not be all of them all at once, but you can start to see if you're trying to get to a point where you all use AI on your team, you're preparing people for new AI jobs. These are some of the things that they're going to need to do on their team as a manager. And so now they are doing this on top of their existing job. Their jobs have changed. I was talking the other day in a session about there was a famous case last year with Deloitte. Deloitte twice produced a report that they produced one of their typical consulting decks. It was found that in them there were hallucinations in the citations. This went viral. They had to pay back some of the money, and everyone kind of talked about how can we trust consulting firms if they're also using AI. It was a whole thing. But what I saw there was accountability. Who is accountable for that mistake in the organization? Is it the junior analyst? Is it the partner who presented the report to the client? Big questions there on accountability, right? And your managers are thinking about this too. Who is accountable when AI goes wrong? Because AI will go wrong. You can put all the guardrails out, but it will go wrong, right? Especially if we're in this period of a lot of experimentation. So thinking about this, oh, we went the wrong way. Managers can't prioritize AI with job descriptions that are stuck in 2022. Okay. Now, I've given you a lot of that. And the goal isn't for all of you to do this, right? All of you are should find your piece in which you can influence here and you can take back to your organization and say, yes, this is the thing that I can contribute to here, right? Because it is messy and it is chaotic, and we do have dependencies that cut across the organization when we do our work in this space. But there are things that you can do to move the conversation along inside your organization, provide better support for your managers, and so on. And looking, if you work on the job side of things, the job architecture, role architecture, taxonomies, all of that, there is a lot of work to be done in here as well. Okay? Because after all, what are people being measured on? Right? Okay, last thing I'll point out. Last thing you can do to support your managers, but also help reduce the blockers right now. There are a lot of blockers inside the organization. Again, some we can control, others we cannot, right? If we have certain tools that are banned, well, they're banned. Like there's not much you can do with that. But what we see is that most organizations are going to have guardrails. Okay, those are your things about what you can and cannot do, what you can specifically what you can't do, tool use, data use, legal requirements, and so on. But few of them have ground rules, right? These ground rules that actually tell people what they can do. So guardrails are telling people what they can't do, but ground rules tell people how to do things. And I would argue they are almost more valuable right now than the guardrails. But that doesn't mean to say you shouldn't have guardrails. Definitely have the guardrails. So the ground rule being like, these are shared expectations for how individuals will behave and how they will interact within the team. So these are norms. And I say this all the time in trainings and with clients, but we are all actively shaping the social norms around AI use. And you see it show up in the organization sometimes where you're like, whoa, should you use AI for that? That's that clash happening right there. You trying to decide, is this appropriate? And those are happening across your organization every single day. Okay. And oftentimes when we see blockers, what we see are unanswered questions. Unanswered questions because either I don't know who has the answer or I can't figure it out on my own. It's just too new, right? So there are tons of these ground rules questions, but examples are, when should we disclose that AI was used in our work? And this is a super interesting one because I've seen it in terms of you have people who are, legal has said you can use AI without disclosing it on the customer facing side. But what about internally? Should you disclose it? Or does that get annoying saying, hey, I used AI for this every single time? Because it would probably be like, well, everyone's using AI, right? But I can't decide that for you. And there is no one right answer. It's very much contextualized to the work you do and your organizational culture. And so that means you should be having a conversation about that on your team to establish these ground rules. Same thing, what information should never be entered into an AI tool? These are your data guardrails, right? But sometimes it gets confusing to people. Have a conversation about that on your team. Who is responsible for an AI produces an error? Another one. Great conversation to have on your team. There are nuances here. And so we can use these questions to start laying the ground rules. And that's going to help everybody build confidence around using AI. It's going to give them the clarity they need. And then we will start to reduce some of those blockers. Now, again, some blockers you can't get, you can't always get around. I think the biggest one I hear all the time is around tool use. It's either what tool I can use or these tools are blocked. What should I do? Okay. So create ground rules in those situations. If someone's asking, what tools should I use? Give them guidance. Okay. If they're asking, what do I do if a tool is banned or not available? How do I get another tool approved? Give them ground rules for the process, right? And this takes time, right? It takes time, and oftentimes it's a facilitated conversation with the appropriate people in the room. The idea here is not to create a committee. The goal here is to have a conversation, right? So we can all agree around these. And oftentimes it will take place on a team level, but with other teams checking in with each other. Okay. The takeaway here is that this AI learning process is one long conversation. It doesn't really end, right? And so things to consider as you look at where you fit in this ecosystem of opportunity. I really end with that right there. My last reflection question here is, where can you make the biggest impact right now? You can think about that if you want to shout it on the chat. Love that as well. But really, where can you make the biggest impact right now? because I tell this to people constantly, no matter the level you're at, in all of this chaos, there is an incredible opportunity. There's an incredible opportunity to write your own job, to define what working with AI looks like in the context of your job, in the context of your team, and so on. So within this chaos, there is that opportunity to define it, right? Because people are looking for answers. And so you can be the one to provide those answers for them, right? Especially right now, you're investing in your training and your learning, you're curious. So I ask you to reflect as I wrap this up here, where could you make the biggest impact inside your organization? What does that look like for the next, let's say, 3 to 6 months? And that's it. That is the talk. I can take some questions too. And if you want to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always talking about AI. And my website is soboringai.com.
Thank you, Nicole, so,
Hmm.
so very much for your time today. Um, I do have one question in the chat that I wanted to address. Really around when you're getting new managers up and running with some of the enablement you mentioned.
Hmm.
How can you consider the difference between managing people and managing agents? And should
Hmm.
you be giving like standard manager training to everybody today as an expectation, or are we really limiting it to people managers?
So looking at, so is the training manager training or agent training? Are we?
Managing agents.
Oh, managing agents training. Okay. So the thing with managing agents training is that right now, when we see in the research and kind of the narrative that coming out is it's like we're just managing some digital employees, and I would say that is marketing right there. They are not digital employees. In fact, I just taught a course on AI agents in the workplace, and we had a whole discussion about this piece of humanizing AI agents, right? But they perform completely different than employees themselves. They don't have the same needs, right? A lot of times AI agents don't take initiative, right? Some AI agents don't have memory, so it doesn't remember, so you have to keep remembering it, right? A lot of what the work that AI agents do is invisible, depending on the AI agent. And we have many types of AI agents. They're not all the same. And so when it comes to answer the question about the type of training, it's a different type of training. It's not the same as managing people at all. And so I think if we take the case of onboarding new managers, yes, they need the AI, they need the people management training, period. Within that, the group of managers who have fundamental AI skills should then at some point take AI agent management. Yes. But again, your organization needs to be in a place where they can support that, right? Which means they have the foundational training, they have informal learning opportunities and as well.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we're hearing a lot about as formal manager training, people humanizing AI agents. So certainly an interesting topic to noodle on. I
Yeah.
want to thank you so much once again. Oh, I see a question from Chris here. Oh, no, I don't. I see Chris gave us an outcome here. Thank you, Chris. Again, if anybody is interested in learning about HR transformation and AI transformation and how we're doing it at Hone and how we're helping organizations do it, you can email me right at linda@honehq.com and I'd be happy to arrange a trial for you. Nicole, it's always a pleasure. Thank you again. And if
Yes.
anybody is in Vegas this week or next week for Unleash or Transform, I'm here and I'd love to meet you. So please do join us. Take care, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye.